Welcome back to Director's Commentary. This is episode 14, where we're talking about, you guessed it, episode 14. With us today, we also have the wonderful Mr. Cole Von Guan, who played my big brother. Cliff, do you want to say hi, Cole?
Hey, everybody.
And play. So I wrote up a blog about why we use a trigger warning. If you're interested in reading it, I'll put the link down there.
I love this picture of Cole and Imogen. It's so cute.
That's more Cole and I than it is Jules and Cliff, I think.
But I also love the juxtaposition of the photo with the tone of the music. I was a big fan of that.
And I've coerced, and I've even begged. I really need
also, shout out to our lighting people for the really nice, cool tones that we got going on here, and, you know, wardrobe people. I think it's just like a nice color palette. Really sets the mood.
I agree. I think this is one of our... Well, yes. I agree. I think this is one of our most successful and most prominent deviations from our kind of standard lighting.
And I guess we just thought that we would be so happy here.
I also think it's cool that her head is blocking the exact spot where the photo of Imogen and I always sits.
Well, it's funny because if you could see the photo, it would be turned face down, which we made sure continuity-wise to always have after this episode.
Which is weird because we did this scene weeks before, maybe months before the rest of episode 14, right?
Yeah, this was really early on. This was the same night that we did the end of episode 3.
It's so stupid. And
yeah, episode 14 was one of the last things we filmed just because it was like the heaviest, obviously, and we wanted to get like lots of acting in front of the camera experience, and like we wanted to kind of like build up the universe before we like attempted to tackle that. Oh, and here we go.
What's up, little sister? Hi. I'm a little surprised to see that you're awake already. This is pretty early for you. Come on, give your big bro a hug.
Cole, I'm not sure how you shimmied out of that jacket.
Oh, I have some big news.
Yeah, well, I wear that a lot, so I'm pretty used to getting in and out of it because I hate being warm. So
yeah, not gonna lie, that's probably one of my favorite parts of this episode. How you get out of that coat. I watch it every time.
Search begins again this afternoon, and he shall soon keep Tibble company.
Like you're like knowingly looking away at the Ophelia poster.
Big news, so hurry up.
I remember having to pick where I could look on there that it looked realistic, and like moving my head bit by bit by bit until I had a good point. It was Ophelia.
Last night was...
Yeah, because this was kind of a tricky scene to block at Cole and Imogen, if you remember kind of going through it, just because like, one, you two are very different sizes, so even getting you both in frame at the same time was difficult, but then also like, I don't know, it was a challenge.
I think, if I remember correctly, we actually reversed which sides we were shooting from, which sides Imogen and I were on a lot of times before landing on this shot.
Yeah, it was definitely a work in progress. I think it also, like, we didn't want it to come off as too static, but we couldn't move the camera because Jules isn't where she left it on and all of that, so it was very much how can we move around this space to make it dynamic and interesting within this small corridor between our beds.
The other one that I definitely... Sorry, Emma, go ahead.
No.
Okay. I also definitely remember that it took us like a ton of takes to do this, partially because we kept moving around, and partially because I think we had a little trouble with it. But by the end of it, I was actually getting really, really angry.
I remember.
And the two of us, Imogen and I had to do a lot of work, like, coming out of the scene to drop back in, because at the ends of the scene, I would just be, like, so mad because of what I'm doing, that it became very difficult to sort of start at the beginning again.
Yeah, I mean, but that's one of the reasons, like, I think we pushed so much to have you as a part of this project, is it's nice because we already have this brother-sister chemistry anyway, but like out of anybody I could have acted this scene with, I knew I'd feel safe with you. For those who don't know, Cole has been my director before this twice, and actually choreographs a stage fight 1 year. So this is not unusual for him to be doing. I mean, besides Cole and I, everybody was in the corridor except for Ben. So Ben is actually hiding behind one of these beds here, turning on the camera, basically. And after each of these takes, he would sit for a couple of seconds and let me just kind of breathe, and then would check in on me and see if I was all right, and then Cole cut. So there was a nice little breathing period after this to kind of move past it, because like no matter how safe you feel and like into it, it's rough.
Yeah, and the same thing was happening outside. Emma and Evie were there to be like, hey, how you doing? Which was nice to sort of be able to step out to friends and all that.
Yeah. Being able to take care of Cole emotionally is one of my best traits, I think. Just like being like, shh, yeah, it's okay, it's okay.
Do not count yourself blessed.
I think the first time we heard you speak these lines during the read-through and you got to the Shakespeare, Ed and I just looked at each other and went, yeah. Because it's got such gravity to it, it really is terrifying.
I was a little afraid having you in the show. I didn't say that out loud. I don't think I told anybody that. Sorry. I'm not sorry.
Well, it's funny because I haven't... Well, Shakespeare was like my favorite thing to do when I was younger, but I hadn't done it in a really long time, so it was fun to be able to work with it again.
Yeah, I mean, one of my only regrets is that we actually didn't give your character more Shakespeare, because, like, your line delivery, like, especially in this scene of the Shakespeare, is like, yeah.
Yeah, but he was too busy being a modern asshole to, like, take time and be interesting, yeah. So, I feel it.
Cole, if you don't mind speaking for a little bit about, like, Cliff, just in general terms, I think this would be a really great time to hear your perspective on the character.
Defend yourself.
What an asshole. I'm not going to defend myself. Are you kidding me? That sucks. No,
Thank you, Cole, for joining us. Perfect.
No, it was interesting, right? Because when you first came and asked me to read the part, I actually think it's really funny because the read-through vlog, I think, is pretty indicative of where I was coming from. Where I was just sort of like, I don't know what the hell's going on. Like, what is this? But when you first asked me to read the part, I was sort of like, yeah, that makes sense because of the group of actors we know. I am sort of the biggest, broiest, jockiest athlete, bro jock of the crew. So I was like, okay, interesting. Sure. And I just
athlete had bro jock.
I want that on business cards for you.
Athlete bro jock? Yeah. Now that I've graduated, I need a niche. But, and I hadn't done a ton of acting recently, so it was a lot of fun for me to sort of, like, take something, because I tend to play characters that are very similar to myself. I think I get typecast a lot because I'm, like, good at being me. So it was fun to play something so different. But when it comes to Cliff, I feel like, well, it's interesting, because actually if you look at that vlog, right, I use a very different voice and some very different mannerisms when I was first reading him that I then toned down a lot for the actual show. And I think that came from a place where it was like, he's not a caricature, really. He actually believes very strongly in what he does and what he's about. And he sucks, yeah, but he is, like, passionate and dedicated to sucking. Like, he will not back down, and he believes, like, yeah, I should be a CEO. I'm a good leader. People trust me. People believe in me. All these kind of things. Like, I should be in control. And I think that that's really the fight that we see with him, is that I think he does love his sister. I think that he's totally muddled about it. And he doesn't understand, really, that other people have control of their own lives. He thinks he's so good at leading that if he makes a decision, it's the right decision. And he just doesn't know how to deal with it when people are like, actually, you're an idiot.
So he sort of lost himself in the Lord.
Exactly. And I think that it is... that was one of my favorite things about the character and how he was written, was that you gave him a name, and you gave him the thing that everyone called him. And the thing that he called himself by, right? Like, he is not Cliff Kane anymore. And the Cliff that Nancy talks about, when she sort of says, like, oh, I thought it was going to be so great. We were coming here with Ty and Cliff, and they were going to protect us, and it would be just like old times. That Cliff is really basically dead. he's killed by his involvement in the Cap fraternity.
Yeah.
Which is sad, because I think he probably was a lovely older brother when he was younger. Yeah. And then just kind of let it all go in the years in between.
God, now I want to do like a Jules and Monty Origins thing where the Lord is the Tyler Durden to Cliff, and he just ruins your life.
Oh, that'd be so cool.
Hey, the adventures of Pierre and Cliff are still on the table.
It's gonna happen.
Cole, you came kind of later on in the process, because your first day of filming wasn't really until Christmas.
Yeah, it was right before we left for break.
Yeah, that's true.
Because it was the DTD filming.
Yeah. How was it kind of jumping into the process later on?
It was really interesting because I had worked with all of you so much. So I at Tufts, I was a director with our theater group. And so I had actually worked with all 4 of these lovely people, as well as many of the others. I mean, like Andy and I went to high school together in California, and then both ended up going to Tufts. And so I'd worked with everybody a ton, but it was weird because I'd always been the director and I had never been the actor. So that was really interesting. The process was super different. I did a lot of film stuff in high school, but I hadn't really done any since. So it was cool. It was cool to sort of step on. I felt a little lost. I was sort of just like, I don't really know what's going on. But you know, it was fun. It was fun. It was a good process. I really enjoyed the people we were working with, so that made it a lot easier. I think that if I hadn't known you guys, it would have been a lot harder for me to be like, here we go, like halfway through the process. So it was good that I sort of...
especially to jump into a role like that, Cliff. I mean, your first day of filming, you were up in front of everybody doing that crazy monologue. Like, that was your first thing.
Well,
and I also... guess...
No, you go.
Okay, well, I would say the one other thing that was useful was that we had already done the photo shoot.
Yeah.
Yes?
Yeah.
And so that was useful.
Like the day before.
Right. So I had been able to sort of practice just like his physicality and stuff like that during the shoot with you guys, and the different ways I would interact with the different characters, which was useful. You know, Nancy and Jules both mentioned, oh, Cliff had this propensity for violence. It wasn't a big deal. Like, nobody was worried about it. He just got mad. But I think that they haven't seen where that's gone. And I think one of the things that was useful for the character for me acting up to this point was that you guys layered that in.
I think you're probably one of the characters that we talk the most about and see the least of, which makes you to be almost... It's kind of like it's almost like a folklore figure. Because we're constantly talking about this guy, the Lord, who like towers over it all, and he's amazing and huge, and Jules always looks up to you. These people are afraid of you. And then when we see you at first, you're like this jovial, happy guy, but slowly as it goes on, you build into all of those myths and legends, and we see the real Lord. And you definitely lived up to expectations.
I think also that kind of mythologizing of Cliff serves... You know, almost you could see it like a microcosm for the feud itself. You know how the hype around the character and around the feud is so much bigger than the thing itself.
What it actually is.
Right.
It's a feud with its own heroes and celebrities and stuff. Like it's grown beyond just an argument.
I think the biggest thing now is I watch these episodes and I look at Cliff and I go, God, I hate him. And that's amazing that you did that, because I look at Cole and I go, oh, I love him.
I mean, that's why I was so happy when any review I saw was always like, oh, that guy's disgusting. He's the worst. And I'm like,
yeah.
Toss. Yes, I am.